The location and monster model classes currently call into Monster Factory to instantiate a monster at a location, and the Item Factory class to instantiate the items in the monster's inventory for looting. The factory classes are going to be moved to soscsrpg.services, which won't be able to be accessed by the model classes, so we need to decouple these. We're going to do this by moving the code that gets the monster at a location and the code that populates the monster's inventory into the Monster Factory class instead of having them in the model classes. So the first step, open up the project, and in the location class, delete the getMonster function that used to be at lines 55 through 86, and then remove the using directive that we had up here at the top for engine.factories and soscsrpg.core. Next, go into the monster class, and we used to have a private variable for the loot table. Change that to a public property, because now the monster factory is going to need to see the loot table in order to populate the monster's loot when it instantiates a new monster. Then delete the getNewInstance function, which was on lines 37 to 57. And I added this new clone function here on lines 34 through 43. The Monster Factory will be able to call this to clone a new monster and get the basic information before it starts populating the inventory for the monster. Then we can go up top and remove the unnecessary using directives we had for both the engine.factories namespace and the soscsrpg.core namespace. Step 3 is to go into the Monster Factory, and we need to add a using directive for soscsrpg.core. Then, just to make the variable naming convention correct, we used to have underscore base monsters here, and I changed this to s_base monsters since it's a static class level variable. And you'll need to change any place in the code that references the underscore base monsters, so now it's s_base monsters. Then I added a new function here on lines 41 through 72. This is the getMonsterFromLocation. So we can call this static function passing in a location, and this will find out the monster that it needs to instantiate and return that. This is basically the code that was in the location class before in the getMonster function. And then I changed the getMonster function. Now it's the lines here on 115 through 129. This calls the clone function, so we can get the base monster and clone it to get a new unique instance of it. And we populate the inventory from the loot table. And this is basically the code that used to be in the monster class's getNewInstance function. For step 4, we need to go into game session, and we're now going to call this getMonsterFromLocation function to instantiate monsters. And we have that in two places in game session. On line 59 in the current location setter, so when we change the location, we get the monster from that location. And then also on line 299 inside the onMonsterKilled, when we instantiate another monster for the player to fight. Now we need to change this to current monster equals monsterFactory.getMonsterFromLocation and pass in the location. Final step, as always, is rebuild it and then run the game to test it. And the important thing we want to make sure here is when we defeat a monster that we get different loot. So here we defeated a snake and we got nothing for the loot. Here we defeated a snake and we got one snake skin. One snake skin. No loot. One snake skin. Here we got one snake fang and one snake skin. So we are getting random loot. So it looks like the get new monster and populating the loot table randomly is working. And I think we're getting close to being able to move things out of the engine project into their SOS/CSRPG dot model, view model, whatever other projects. The two things I know we need to work on are the message broker, which I think is going to go into SOS/CSRPG.core, because models could raise messages, services could raise messages, the view model subscribes to it. Basically anything can access it, so it has to be visible to everything. And then the save game service. Right now, we're passing in a game session and instantiating a game session object from here, which is a view model. And the view model can see the services, but the services won't be able to see the view models. So we need to fix this. And this is actually something that really shouldn't be instantiating a view model anyway. It should just be getting a game state object. So I think we're almost at the point where we can move everything and then get on to adding new features. If you have any questions, please leave a comment beneath the video or on the support page, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.